Right, so next up we have someone who runs marathons, is also an artist. You'll be able to see her painting in Jacaranda room, it's on display, and also a scientist. Our next speaker is Dr. Rashmi Rodriguez. Rashmi will talk about her journey from being just a beneficiary of mobile phone technology to harnessing it to support healthcare. Rashmi is interested in developing better public healthcare support systems and works on infectious diseases like HIV infection and tuberculosis. So over to you, Rashmi.
A very good morning to all of you. Thank you for coming over to listen to all of us. Okay, so I have come all the way from Bangalore and prepared a fairly basic presentation for all of you to listen to, and I hope at the end of this, I will at least be able to communicate a simple message to the young crowd, right? Okay, so how many of you have mobile phones? Everybody, I'm sure, or at least you know how to use one, yeah? Okay, so if you think about your phone and what you do with it, I'm sure at some point in time, you have used it for some healthcare-related activity. You've at least Googled a disease, perhaps, right? Spoken to maybe your doctor, correct? Yes. Or maybe used it for physical activity when you tried to look at the number of steps you walked for the day, right? So some of us may have done even that. So I'm just going to take you through my work with mobile phones and how I have tried to harness them kind of to improve healthcare, right? So here is a picture that shows the evolution of the mobile phone, just like the human evolution. Now, just as my previous speaker mentioned that generally objects evolve to match their surroundings, so has the mobile phone. It was kind of not very pretty in the beginning, and now you see it's quite handsome or pretty, right? Just like the humans today. So, I would not be wrong if I actually said humans nowadays are born with a mobile phone, right? Well, in some way or the other, the conceived fetus, right, interacts with the mobile phone and at some level. And so, the young children that are born nowadays are quite intuitive when it comes to using a mobile phone. At the age of 3, you would have seen children playing kind of games on the mobile phone, yes? Right. So, well, it's now in the genes. Perhaps the genetic code has changed to incorporate the mobile phone. So here's a picture. The top part of it shows the Delhi telephone exchange in the 1950s. A lot of humans there. Now, it's kind of, okay, so now it's been replaced by an entire web system of servers and networks. So you don't really need a human component. If you look at the growth of mobile phones itself, right, both globally and in India, the numbers of mobile phone users have increased tremendously. I remember getting my mobile phone somewhere in 2004. I had gone home, opened my dad's cupboard, and there was a nice little box with an Alcatel mobile phone. It was given to him by somebody. And I wanted it, because generally nobody else at that time actually owned one. And he was kind enough to give it to me. And I literally went around showing it off to people, saying, oh, I have a mobile phone. And at that time, that mobile phone, unlike the other mobile phones that people used, had a speaker in it. So it kind of boosted my morale in a way. But what I want to bring home with this slide is, if you look at the picture in the background, that is something that people laugh at, especially at IT conferences or mHealth, mobile health conferences. They say India is a country that has more mobile phones than it has toilets. People may not use a toilet, especially in rural India, but they will surely have a mobile phone. The point is this: mobile phones are so common that you can actually try to deliver healthcare in some basic way even to people in the most remote villages today, right? And this is an excellent tool that we can harness in a country that has so many people and so little healthcare resource. So this was one of my early works in mobile healthcare technology. We did a survey in a village, and what I wanted to do was, I was really happy that I was able to successfully do the survey in 2 months. I wanted to present it at a community medicine conference. So the student who worked with me on this sent this paper to the conference as an abstract. And the organizers laughed at it. They said, what is this? Why are you kind of talking about whether you're making calls to a doctor, whether you're not, whether you're sending an SMS, whether you're not? I mean, what kind of a paper is this? It actually didn't get accepted as an oral presentation, but we just had to convince the organizers to accept it for a poster. And of course, it got accepted at that time for a poster. I was, of course, able to publish this paper later in a nice journal, and it was well appreciated. But yes, it was part of my work, and that's somewhere where I began. If you now look at the different things mobile phones can do, Apple has come up with technology to kind of monitor your heart rate. You can speak to your doctor. You can see your doctor on the mobile phone if you want to, maybe if you have a suitable app. Mobile microscope technology is also available. And there are people who are now trying to use it to diagnose malaria in rural India, not rural India, but rural parts of the world. So you can have ultrasound that you can view on a mobile phone. And of course, you can have you can order your pills and medications on a mobile phone also. So then, when I started my work with mobile phones, the disease that was considered of immense public health importance was HIV. There were a lot of people suffering from HIV at that time, and nobody really knew how we could help them. What was important was that they took their medications adequately. They had to take at least 95% of their medications if their disease was to be under control. Keeping their disease in control also prevented them from spreading the disease to other people. But the question was, would people with HIV take their medications correctly? And can we help them make sure that they took 95% of their prescribed medications correctly, right? Now, by itself, people with HIV are largely driven by the motivation to take their medicines, because they know that if they do not take their medications, they will not live very long, right? So of course, they want to do it. And so when we kind of approached patients with HIV, asking them if they would like to have a mobile phone application to help them take their medications better, they really loved it. So we developed kind of a basic mobile phone application. This was somewhere in the year 2010. Patients with HIV still had very basic mobile phones, right? And when we spoke to them, we realized that they did not like SMSs so much. What they liked was voice calls. So unlike what people had done in Africa, where they had used SMSs to remind patients to take their medications better, in India, we had to think differently. And we came up with an interactive voice response call. This went out to the patient once a week, right? And it kind of told patients to press 1 if they took their medications, and 2 if they did not take their medications. Now, just to add another component of the reminder, we sent them a pictorial SMS. We had to take care of the sentiments of the people with HIV. And that is because people do not like others knowing that they have HIV infection, right? They may be stigmatized, they may be ostracized, for example, and therefore they were very concerned. So we had to take away all mention of HIV in whatever we did. So every week, patients received an interactive voice response call, and they also received a pictorial SMS at on 2 different days, right? And what we did was we put this in something called a clinical trial. Do you know what a clinical trial is? Yes? It's kind of an experiment that you would maybe conduct in your physics or chemistry lab, except that it's on humans, right? So we put this in a clinical trial where there were one group of patients that did not receive either the SMS or the IVR call, and another group that received both, right? And in the end, we wanted to see whether this concept of giving patients a reminder was ever useful. So, unfortunately, right, this study went on for about 2 years. Unfortunately, our intervention was too simple. It's like you get several SMSs on your phone, or you get several IVRs. Initially, you're extremely enthusiastic about them. You answer them, especially if you had a new phone, right? And after some time, you kind of don't like them so much anymore. You're like, why are these people calling me? Why am I being pestered all the time about maybe my medications or something else? Why am I being reminded so much? So overall, in the end, we realized that the intervention that we had developed wasn't it didn't really help patients very much. Also, another reason may have been that it did not have a human component, right? It was entirely a system, a web-based computerized system that made the calls. Unlike somebody calling and speaking to another person in person. So there may have been a difference there. A third reason may have been because HIV patients were motivated enough to take their medications by themselves. They were really worried about the consequences of their disease, and so they really took their medications really well. So, but the question was, we have a tool that we can effectively use. And how could we actually use our experiences, maybe to make things better, perhaps for another disease? Is there another disease that could benefit from the experiences we had with patients with HIV? And then, of course, there was tuberculosis. It is another disease that also affects a large number of people, especially in India. It also requires patients to take medications for maybe 6 months. And as patients are not as scared about the consequences of the disease, they tend to falter a lot with tuberculosis medications. Now, what system we currently have is to observe patients when they take their TB medications, right? You have to see, to say that a patient has taken their medications. And for that, the patient has to come to the doctor or to a person designated to observe the patient while they take their medications. And that is called direct observed treatment. Okay? So now with mobile phones and our experience, the question was, can we do something else? So while I was working with HIV, there was a group, Microsoft Research India, and 2 researchers there, Bill and Andrew, who approached me with a concept that they had. They said, we want to do something with TB patients. We want to see if we can help them take their medications better, but we don't really know how to go about it. And so we sat and discussed around a table about giving a patient a missed call, right? And then that evolved from a missed call. So initially we thought maybe we could, I think, give a missed call reminder to the patient, but what we wanted to do was actually to record whether the patient had taken a dose. So what we did is we sent the patient an SMS with a number on it, with half the number on it, and kind of with the number on it, to which the patient gave a missed call to say they had taken their medications. It was not necessary for anybody to answer the call. That was when the intervention was very basic, right? So a patient would receive a mobile phone number, wire a message, and then give a missed call to the number and hang up. So we would record that the patient had taken their medication. Now the concept has evolved further, wherein there are nice, neat little packets available to the patient, and the patient flips the cover on each of the medications, and there's a number that's relieved. So that's revealed. So what happens is every day the patient is expected to take maybe either 2 or 3 medications depending on their weight. And when that happens, there is a toll-free number that's there on the back of that slip. And the patient gives a missed call to that number, which is recorded. And then you kind of put all the missed calls together to see if the patients have taken all their medications, their prescribed medications or no. This is used with patients who have HIV and TB co-infections. It is not yet used for just tuberculosis patients. The reason being, we have a huge burden of the disease, and perhaps our healthcare system is not yet well equipped to take on the responsibility of removing completely the human component and giving it to a missed call system, right? But we don't know yet where this will go. Perhaps it will be used for patients with TB in the country, perhaps not. We're yet to see that. From there, I came across a group of researchers at Johns Hopkins University that were working with the concept of video DOT. Now, video DOT tries to look at the patient while they are swallowing their medications. And for that, there's an app. So what the app does is, what the patient does is, uses the app and records themselves taking their medications. The app transmits that video to the healthcare provider to view at a time when the healthcare provider is free. And they check whether the patient has taken all their medications. So the issue that we had initially when we discussed with Johns Hopkins University was that the app that was developed in the US didn't really work in India. Our mobile phones were perhaps of a different kind. I myself do not understand why, in a way. So we had to think differently, and we had to develop our own mobile application. This application is now available on the Google Play Store as v.cure. So, of course, this is available free of cost for download for patients to use, but they have to be registered by their healthcare provider on this application. Here's kind of a brief video that you can view.
With any health problems, completion of the full course of treatment is very important to ensure complete recovery. Through this mobile application, we aim at supporting you through your long months of treatment. Let me run you through with how this application works. Your first step would be to find a bright room with good lighting so that your video is clear. Once done, please place your phone in an appropriate position to record your video. And then click on the application. Language options will appear as the first screen. Click on language of your choice. Then comes the login page. Here enter your user ID in the user ID box and your password in the password box. Following this, you will be directed to the instructional videos page. By clicking on the play button, you may choose to watch the video, or else you may skip it by clicking on the skip button. You will now appear on the recording page of the application. Here on the bottom of the screen, you will find a record button. By clicking on this, you may begin recording your video. Kindly show the tablets to the camera before you take them. Now you may take your tablets one at a time or all together, as I am doing in this video. Once done, please show your empty mouth to the camera. By clicking on the stop button on the bottom of the screen, your video will automatically be uploaded. Let me run you through with a few more features of this application. For instance, by clicking on the I button, you may get an idea about the number of videos uploaded and accepted. By clicking on the back button on the top left corner of the screen, you will be able to watch the instructional video once again. By clicking on the logout button on the top right of the screen, you may log out of the application. I hope that this video was helpful. Please remember that it is very important to complete the entire course of treatment, failing which the symptoms will recur with more severe complications and a longer duration of treatment. We hope for your successful treatment and complete recovery. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the concept of the app that we have developed. And basically what it does is helps the doctor view the patient taking their medications. Yeah, you may ask, but the patient might spit out their medications, or they might kind of use a glass of fluid that is not clear, for example, milk, right? They could, and they could spit their medications into that glass of milk. Or they might use a glass which is like a steel glass, and they might still spit out their medications into it. Of course, these are the issues that we have. And I do agree that we may not be able to counteract all of them. The issue, of course, is that we can suggest to patients to use a clear glass of fluid and a clear glass itself to take the medications. But then, perhaps we're going to be a little too strict with the patient, and they may not like it. So we have to actually kind of come to a balance between how much we want to do, right? Because ultimately, it's the question of the confidence that we gain from the patient. We need to believe the patient to a large extent if we have to help them take their medications better. None of us like to be monitored closely. We kind of, step back a little bit. If our parents kind of tell us, where have you been till 11 in the night? We don't like it. So it's the same thing with patients that we have. So what we need to do, basically, is to try to be nicer to our patients, and that is what we're trying to hope to do with the app. Along with that, we're also trying to support them with a certain amount of counseling, which we didn't do when we did the HIV study, right? So we try to speak to the patients about taking their medicines better, what their problems are, and how they could kind of overcome those problems. We are, like the HIV study, trying to do another trial with this application. It may be successful, it may be not, but it will surely tell us, give us useful information on whether this can be used large scale or not, right? So that is the purpose. Is the intervention that we develop useful enough for maybe 1 billion people, right? Will they accept it? What about the intervention makes it nicer for them to accept it? And that is something that we constantly have to keep thinking of as we work with patients, with healthcare, and with the mobile phone. And nothing stops anybody from coming up with a new idea or a concept. So maybe as you all go away from here, and look at your mobile phones. Perhaps you will come up with another idea which may be one of the best, which has never been tried before, right? So as you go away, keep thinking to see where you can go, and that's important. So yes, I like to use this picture in most of my presentations, and it kind of gives me a sense of bringing the country together, and perhaps the mobile phone can do it, perhaps it may not, but yeah, let's hope for the best. And of course, I thank India Alliance and my institution and other people who have helped me with where I am now. So, any questions?
In the interest of time, we'll take 2 questions. Sorry about that, but they're available so they can take it.
Hello. My question is, mobile phones have adverse effects, that is effects of radiations on human health, but mobile phones has also become a necessity for our daily lives. We cannot think of our life without mobile phones nowadays. My question is, what are the various ways by which we can continue using mobile phones as well as preventing adverse effects on human health?
Yeah, mobile phones are a double-edged sword, right? So you have benefits as well as ill effects. For example, alcohol also has benefits and ill effects. If you take too much of alcohol, you're sure to have a problem one day. It could be cirrhosis or it could be something else. So similarly with mobile phones, it is left, I think what is important is that each individual learns to control his or her use of the mobile phone, right? So you need to have restriction, you need some restriction about what you do. I mean, a good, what shall I say, too much of a good thing is bad. So I think it all lies with the individual.
You know, as you have informed us about the HIV, the problems like, you know, diabetes and sugar, how this can be used on large scale, because India is the capital of diabetes. And my second question is that when we have MTS, medical transcription system on computers, in America it is used on large scale, how it can be used in India on the base of computers to benefit the patients? Thank you.
Yeah, so when you talk about diabetes and hypertension and non-communicable disease, there are trials going on in India that are trying to look at how you can improve physical activity and prevent, what shall I say, the onset of diabetes in a way. So there have been studies that have already come out that giving patients, educating patients via their mobile phones are helpful, and it can delay the onset of diabetes, while there are other studies that are currently ongoing to maybe look at different aspects of what can be done via mobile phones. I think Arogya World is one such group that is kind of trying to look at the use of, I think, health education via mobile phones in the IT sector, right, to kind of delay the onset of diabetes and non-communicable disease. Well, coming to medical transcription, I'm not really sure at the moment if we have, we probably have a number of people who have been doing medical transcription. Of course, in St. John's itself, where I come from, there was a unit that was trying to do it at a distance. So yeah, I mean, I haven't really ventured into that field, so I'm probably not the best person to talk about medical transcription. But what is currently being done is they're trying to link or create a database or create a linkage between records and develop something called a health information management system for the country, which can, in a way, perhaps, if you are ill now, and you want to go to another place, or you have moved to another place, you've had surgery in one place, say in Bangalore, and for some reason you move to Delhi one day. and you need to go back to your doctor. And the doctor needs to know what your issues were previously in order to treat you now. And that can be possible if we have in the country a very good health information management system and something called electronic health records. So if we can kind of develop that and incorporate electronic medical records into the entire system, I think it would be a good idea. I mean, people are working towards it. There are groups that have come up with different solutions. We are yet to know whether that's going to be, yet to try it in the field, I think.
All right, let's thank Rashmi. Give it up for her. Come on.